Today, we've got a topic that's been generating a lot of heat in the gaming community, especially if you're a Nintendo fan. So here's the deal. Mr. Shuhei Yoshida, the former president of Sony Interactive Entertainment who just retired in 2025, recently did an interview. Why? It's been sparking headlines all over the place. Why? Because in that interview, Yoshida basically says that PlayStation doesn't view Nintendo as competition. And some folks are losing their minds over this, saying it's disrespectful, dismissive, or just plain ridiculous. But I think I've got a different take than most people. So let's break it down. Here's the core of what Shuhei Yoshida had to say. Working at PlayStation, our perception of competition has always been Xbox. Xbox is our direct rival. Similar performance, mature games, high-end hardware. Nintendo, they're totally different. They're all about family-friendly gaming, fun with friends, not cutting-edge tech. And in our internal business analysis, Nintendo doesn't even show up as competition. Not because we disrespect them, but because they're simply operating in a different market. Now, Yoshida did clarify that this is mainly PlayStation's perspective outside of Japan. In Japan, things are different. Xbox basically doesn't exist over there, so it is a direct battle between Nintendo and Sony in that region. But globally, Sony's competition is Microsoft, not Nintendo. So why are people so upset about this? Well, some Nintendo fans see this as disrespectful. Like, how can you not consider a company that regularly outsells your consoles not competition? And I get that. I do. It sounds like Sony is brushing Nintendo off, even though Nintendo's been killing it with the Switch and is about to drop the Switch too. But here's the thing. I think Yoshida's actually being pretty honest, brutally honest, about how the business operates. Because if we're being real here, Nintendo and PlayStation are in totally different lanes. Sure, there's some crossover, but if we're talking about direct competition, the last time Nintendo and PlayStation were really battling it out was probably the GameCube versus PlayStation 2 era. And even back then, Sony had the huge advantage of being a cheap DVD player when DVDs were just becoming mainstream. That was a big deal. I remember that time. Convincing your parents to buy a PS2 because, hey, it's a DVD player and a gaming console was a legit strategy. After that generation, Nintendo just went their own way. Sony and Microsoft kept pushing forward with more powerful, high-tech systems. Nintendo? They dropped the Wii, a souped-up GameCube focused on motion controls and casual experiences. Yeah, they had some mature games on the Wii and a few third-party cross-platform releases, but let's be real. The Wii versions were nowhere near what the PS3 or Xbox 360 could do. Nintendo was on their own timeline and doing their own thing. That trend continued. When Sony and Microsoft launched the PS4 and Xbox One, Nintendo dropped the Wii U, which, well, we know how that went. But then came the Switch, and suddenly Nintendo was back on top again, without following the same hardware race. Now with the Switch 2 coming out years after the PS5 and Xbox Series X launched, we're seeing again how Nintendo moves to its own beat. They're not releasing new consoles to compete directly with Sony's timeline. They're not chasing teraflops or ray tracing. They're doing Nintendo things, and it's working for them. And let's talk about the software. PlayStation is known for those big single-player cinematic experiences. The Last of Us, God of War, Spider-Man, you know the type. Some love them, some find them overhyped, but that's Sony's bread and butter. Nintendo? They're about fun. Mario, Zelda, Smash Bros. Pokemon. Games you can pick up and play, games that are family-friendly, creative, and nostalgic. You're not going to mistake a PlayStation game for a Nintendo one, and vice versa. Even when Sony tries to do something Nintendo-like, like Astro Bot or the PlayStation Move back in the day, it still feels different. It's not their main focus. They're experimenting, not redefining their brand. Think of it like the car industry. Not every car company is competing for the same customer. Honda isn't out here worrying about Porsche. They're not the same market. Just like Nintendo isn't worried about trying to compete with Sony on graphical horsepower or realistic physics engines, Honda sells a ton of cars. Way more people drive Hondas than Porsches. But that doesn't make Honda lesser. It just means they're serving different needs. And that's the core point. The gaming industry is massive. Bigger than it's ever been. There's plenty of room for different styles, different goals, different audiences. You don't have to compete in the exact same way to be successful. We've already seen this before. Look back at the PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, DS, and PSP era. All those systems were successful, and not all of them were competing head-to-head. So who cares if PlayStation doesn't see Nintendo as competition? Nintendo probably doesn't see PlayStation as competition either. They're both thriving, just in different ways. If anything, the real concern should be Xbox. If Xbox really does pull back from console hardware, as rumors suggest, we're looking at just two major players left. That's not a good thing, because then you have one company dominating one lane and another dominating the other. Less competition equals less innovation. So if anything, I hope Xbox doesn't go away. We need variety. We need different approaches to gaming. We need multiple players pushing each other. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on the whole thing. Maybe you see it differently, and that's totally fine. Let's talk about it. Do you think PlayStation is right to not view Nintendo as competition? Or is that just corporate ego talking? Drop a comment down below. Let me know your take. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss future uploads. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.